Hello, this is Linsalata, and this is for PNP4, the NPC and Item that I did. I did a bow and an archer, and I give shoutouts to Trae. He helped me out understand a lot about the code and why some things didn't work with the arrow not being at the right position and always messing up, and helped me with the patrol routes because it wasn't working. It just stopped whenever we picked up the bow. But anyway, let's get into part of the game. So he's going to go pick up the bow first. That's his primary objective. He's going to go pick up the bow, and he's going to go on his patrol route. But if he sees this player right here, he's going to go after it. So I'm going to move him away for a bit, and I'm going to show you where he goes. So he goes at the first one right here, and then he goes to this one after. He'll go over after this one, and then he'll go to this one. Once the time or the current ++ in my code says he reaches this, it goes back to 0 and he goes back in the route. So let's move the player in his vicinity. So he's behind him, bam, he looks directly at him and he starts shooting him. So he starts shooting him, and that's pretty much what he does. He starts shooting him. But if I move closer towards him, and even enough, there we go, and he starts to back up, fall, and retreat, saying, get out of my space, I'm a range person, I don't want you near me. So I'm going to keep on shooting while I back up until I move out of range and he goes back to his patrol route. And that's pretty much it. The bow is basically there to say where I want the arrow to be shot at from and be intimidating for the player. But again, whenever he gets in range, he goes back out. See, boop, there you go. There was also another problem where if I got too close, he would spaz out. But thanks to Trae, we fixed that, and he helped me a lot with that. So now I'm going to get into the Trello aspect before I get into the code. Thank you for your time. Let's get into the Trello. So here's the Trello. This is the week 2 non-playable character Archer and the week 3 NPC item, the bow, basically. So here it is. The description is, as the designer, I want to create an NPC that will act as an archer when the player is in sight and follow that player. It basically did that, but once it's out of sight, it will no longer see the player and go on its patrol routes. The checklist is that the archer gets the reference of the bow, and the archer goes and receives the bow. Once it receives that, so after the first 6 are basic 5, I would say, are basically getting reference to the item and its target, and then it goes after that item and then after the target. But if the target is in sight, it will go after the archer will go after the target. If it isn't, it goes on a patrol route. The last 4 right here, these 4 are for when the archer either gains sight of the target or loses sight of the target, and if it loses sight, it goes on its patrol route. Right here are the links to the NPC data document, item document, Trae's YouTube link that I have so I can give him credit, and the LookAt function that I used for looking at the bow and target. Right here, the bow, basically it just says, you know, when it's equipped, it will be applied to the NPC and have it fire like the bow at a player, mob, or enemy. So how we did it. First, the first 2 right here, well, 3, no, 4, no, 3, yeah, 4, 5, no, 4, are, it's in the hierarchy, and it's set to true. Once it's received, set to false, and the bow on the archer appears, and that's turned on to true. The last 6 are basically saying, does the bow function correctly with the NPC and it doesn't spaz the NPC out, and does the arrow instantiate at the right position on the bow? And it does. It does position itself correctly on the bow, and it does fire correctly on the bow. Before it didn't, had to work around with that. That's why Trae is mentioned. He helped me figure why it wasn't doing that. With that, there's also this. I'm going to go over in this a little bit. So I'll get into that right. So here's the NPC document for the data for the archer and item. Here's what he looks like. Right here is his attribute description. So he's basically used for a flyer destroyer, annoyance, experience. He's the best in plains, ballistic turrets, mountains, and kind of rivers. Whenever he's triggered, it's whenever the player's in sight, in the vicinity, and basically at the start of the mission. He interacts with the mobs around him, enemies, or players. If he's on your team, that's why I said enemies. And his behavior is really aggressive, but he's also annoying. And he's always in two sites, he's 2 spaces away unless, you know, he's got a certain type of bow. Basic, you know, starter units, you know, basic units, and, you know, this is what he can grow up into a sniper or a mounted unit. Main attributes I focused on are health, basically all this right here, health to projectile damage. So the minimum, they're weak at first, but they grow up really strong. So they start off weak, but they grow strong, and that's what they are. They're basically a glass cannon, but also can take a little bit of damage. But they drop items, and this is at the minimum they can drop it, which is at 50, which is only bow, gold, and potions. Bow and gold are the 20%, but at maximum they can drop bows at the highest, armor, potion, and gold. And now the projectiles they can use, these are certain projectiles they can use, ranging from a variety of different damage right here, which is 2 to 35. But each one is different, where like the Brave, the Glass, and Bright Arrow do more damage. So the bow basically has the same given based used attributes, elements, triggers, and all that stuff because it's attached to the archer. Here's what it looks like right here. Not fancy, yada yada yada. Basic bow, but can be powerful with enchantments. Again, damage ranges from a lot. The damage can go 5 to 40. The range can be 1 to 3. A lot of money or not a lot of money can weigh and slow down the archer, and different types of bows that can be used against people, but they're usually light and easy to use. So that's the NPC and item. So here's the code for the NPC. Right here, here's a reference to Trae and Unity, the LookAt transformation from Unity that I use to look at the bow and player and the patrol routes. And Trae, here's a YouTube channel, give him a shout out right there. So right here, basically basic stuff, how I set the in the inspector, how I set the target for the bow and player and patrol routes. So here's the one problem I had. This is the one problem that Trae helped me out with. This is how the bow was this is how the arrow was freaking out and being behind him, pushing him to the player and spawning on his right side. Trae gave me an idea to just say, hey, set the position to where you want it to be with an empty game object, and that should be it. We can try doing this just to make sure that it works, and this worked. And I for the longest time it scratched my head. I just wanted to make it work first, so I had the key code and had a different position, but it messed up. Right here, this is what I like about it. So have bow is set to false, which is the bull, but if I don't have the bow, I look at the bow. And if I do have the bow, I look at the target, which is the player. And if I don't have the bow, I will move towards the bow while looking at the bow, and then I will look at the either patrol route if the player's not in view, or I will look at the player if the player's in view. But I have to do that. It does that. The NPC does that if I do have the bow and the target is null. This is how the patrol route works. So I have the bow now. Good. So now we go on the patrol route. So the patrol route is this, saying, okay, the player's not in target. Good. Go on the patrol route. Look at the patrol route. Move towards it at your target, which is right here, and its current position and your position. So move towards it. Once you're there, just keep on going around, and this is the timer for it. So if it's 0, it goes up to 3, 4 actually, and resets from this code right here. Now, if the target is in range of the vicinity of the archer, and it's 20, the player will, the NPC will move towards it, but won't go too far because it says, okay, it's too close, I back up. This is how it falls back right here. I set its fallback position in the inspector, and it will fall back, and that's how it happens. But if I have the bow and it's within this range, I will go towards it. And this is how I launch the arrow. Basically, it says if the timer is above 2, launch the arrow, reset the timer back to 0. And that's pretty much it. Trae helped me out with this one right here. It was bugging out. It was being weird. He helped me figure out what code to use, and it helped out. Same thing with this, but this one not really much. But that is all. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.